Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name's Tim Sears, and this is Alexi Pascalidis, and we're directors at Oxide Interactive. Just start by saying thanks very much to Adam and Josh and all the volunteers that have put lots of hard work into making today happen, and I hope that you've found it useful and been able to learn some stuff and also meet some other people perhaps you didn't know. So as I mentioned, Alexi and I are from Oxide Interactive, and Oxide's 11 years old. We work mostly with federal government, crafting digital products for Drupal and mobile. We've been working with Drupal since 2004, and we've been mashing it together with all kinds of other technology ever since. So today, I want to start by asking you a question, which is, are you under pressure to do more? Is your team under pressure to deliver more? Build more websites, engage more digitally, deliver on more objectives, keep up with tech trends? I think we're all pretty familiar with these demands. However, now you're under pressure to do it faster, more efficiently, and quite possibly with fewer resources. Right now, we're in the age of the customer. It's a customer-centric, consumer-obsessed age as consumers now have a voice, and it's growing ever louder. As a result, the expectation is on fantastic, engaging experiences, and this means that the concept of a CMS is changing. So this afternoon, we want to talk more about the age of the customer and the rise of experiences. This demands more from us all. However, what we want to get across is that as we explore the meaning of a content management system, we see that Drupal can actually help us achieve more with less. As we take these trends and project them out to 2025, we build a picture of how Drupal can become the centerpiece of your digital engagement and enable you to do more with less. This is a big picture conversation. We won't be diving into Drupal modules or techniques, but we will make some suggestions for how Drupal could evolve as it adapts to the marketplace. We're currently living in what Forrester calls the age of the customer. We expect more and want to wait less. This is fantastic for us as consumers, but for industry and government, the old way of doing things is over. It has fundamentally changed the way we deliver information, services, and engage with the public. This is relevant as we discuss the role of a CMS like Drupal in the future. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction how this came about. It is brought about by two main components. The first of which is that consumers now have a voice. It started with the disruption of some traditional services, for instance, social media disrupting customer service. More broadly, though, it's the disruption caused by a few of today's key digital ingredients, which are social, mobile, video, and cloud. Think about how this disruption has changed the way you evaluate experiences, even for yourself. We're all acutely aware of our experience, especially when it's a bad one. In the past, if you are unhappy or had a gripe, you could lick a stamp and mail the letter to a complaints department. It would probably die there under the massive pile of other such angry letters. Now, a 1-star rating is only a click or a tap away. These digital technologies have shifted the power away from big brands back to consumers, giving them a voice. An early example of online video and social media disruption is a story about Dave and his brother Don from Canada. They were in a band and about to start their week-long tour of Nebraska. They land in Chicago and are patiently waiting to file off the plane when suddenly another one of the passengers says, "Hang on a minute, they're throwing guitars out there." Sure enough, Dave's custom $3,500 Taylor guitar was badly damaged and the airline, United Airlines, wouldn't pay for the repairs. Dave decides to channel his frustration into what he knows best, and he writes, records, and films a song called United Breaks Guitars. The video went up on YouTube and caught on pretty much straight away. It got 150,000 views in the first day. This then grew to 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, until reaching over 14 million views today. Suddenly, United does want to pay back the money, and talk shows everywhere want to interview Dave, and even Taylor starts giving him free guitars to use in future videos. The consumerization of digital technology has caused a disruption to traditional systems like customer service. This has put the power back in the hands of the consumer with all kinds of powerful tools that change the way we live. This is part one to Age of the Customer. Already, you can see that the power shift requires a rethink in how we engage online. So in this world, how does the CMS fit in? Before I answer that, let's have a look at the second part of Age of the Customer. Because social, mobile, video, and cloud we now have an expectation for better experiences. We engage with billion-dollar companies in the palm of our hand every day for free. We spend our spare time on services like Facebook, but then we don't get this same experience when applying for a visa or doing our tax return. Let me explain this comparison in a little more detail. It really clarifies, I think, a big part of why we're here and where we're heading. So I like to use this diagram, which is depicting a self-perpetuating cycle. And it first, outlines part one, which is exposure. And that is exposure to a marginally more engaging or desirable experience. So for me, this is when I could open a new bank account entirely online. The process, it wasn't fantastic, but I didn't have to go into a branch. I didn't have to dig up 1,000 pieces of ID, and I didn't have to speak to anyone. It happened entirely online, and it was up and running instantly. It cross-referenced me with some other databases to verify that I was who I said I was, and overall, I was pretty impressed. So I've now been exposed to this more engaging experience. The second part of the diagram is appreciation. So you grow to appreciate this experience and how it's improved your life. Because I'm at work during business hours, I can't go into the bank for things. The fact that I can do everything online means I can do it any place, anytime, and on my own terms. So I've now grown to appreciate the experience. The third part of the cycle, expectation, is when appreciation turns to expectation for the same thing in my other relationships. I now find that I'm frustrated when other services want me to call up or mail this in or send us a fax, and I don't even know what a fax is. So my appreciation has turned into expectation. Then the next step is this expectation, of course, generates demand. I find myself now filtering services based on their capacity to do things online. If their website looks like it's from the last millennium, it's instantly discarded, regardless of how good the service is, or how good the rate is, or their phone support. So that's generated demand. So now, because of the ease at which we communicate with friends overseas or open an account, the expectation is set of our airlines and banks. This applies to government also. Simply swap age of the customer for age of the citizen. The research is clear-cut that citizens no longer accept the shoulder shrug and age-old excuse that government is like that when service quality isn't as expected. Not only is that true, but there's plenty of governments around the world that are taking great steps to embrace new technology. One example is in the Victorian government's digital strategy. They say that whilst the average customer will spend only a fraction of their online time interacting with the government, Increasingly, their expectation is that the government should provide an experience as efficient and seamless as that offered by their banks, utilities, and favourite online stores. Part of their vision is, in their words, to shift from disparate agency-centric websites and use of social media to a new customer-centric state where the digital presence is organised for and around citizens, businesses, and communities. The natural progression, therefore, is that technology pushes from the consumer market into the enterprise and government market. This means we have to step it up. We have to do more. It means rethinking the way we do it and the tools we do it with. The challenge, Forrester says, is for government to use digital disruption to its advantage. To keep in step with empowered citizens, governments must find ways to transform the constituents' experiences, embrace mobility, and turn big data into fresh insights. Those who fail to do so are quickly swallowed up by those that do. We could have a quick "where are they now" segment and remember people like, say, Nokia, which in spite of owning a massive amount, 30% of the world's mobile patents, it finds itself struggling to stay relevant. Or Kodak, who invented the digital camera, but failed to capitalise on it. You can see that customers have a voice and that they use it to demand better experiences. That is why we're already in this age of the citizen. It is relevant to all industries and government who have to engage digitally. This change can't occur without a change in the tools we use to power it. As we move into the future, you'll see that content management systems must evolve and adapt. How do you rise to this high level of expectation and do more with less? Well, we see it looking like this. Drupal sits as the centrepiece for citizens engaging with your organisation. It is the single touch point for many facets of your organisation. We aren't talking now about a simple container for content anymore. Instead, Drupal connects multiple front ends. It's the gateway for uploadable information, and it is the conduit between a number of other systems that store and analyse your data. We'll come back to this, but let's move away from the term content management and instead refer to the bigger picture of Drupal, which we're going to call experience management.
So Tim has painted a picture of how public expectations of technology continually increase and how that shifts into government and enterprise. He's introduced the concept of a CMS transforming into experience management, and interconnected other systems and front ends, broader than managing content just for web and mobile. The middle point for this engagement, in between the interconnected systems and all the front ends, is where we feel Drupal fits. I want to talk to you about how we feel this concept might extend over the next 10 years. The picture I'm going to paint of the internet of tomorrow focuses on predictions we feel are relevant to Drupal adding value to government. Worth pointing out that for the future internet we're going to discuss today, there is no big reveal. We're not going to be talking about jetpacks and flying cars. Following the predictions for 2025 that are floating around today, there's a common thread. There's a bunch of things that industry folk agree on. In general terms, this is extending more of what we have now. In particular, we're all going to be much more connected, and we're going to be uploading significantly more information. These predictions should be no-brainers, but we're going to focus on these two as we feel that they're the most relevant to Drupal and government. Our focus here is on how governments can use the future internet and Drupal to better engage with the public. We recognise that there's risks that need to be managed, but we want to paint an upbeat picture, the internet that we want to continue, and we want to avoid sort of dystopian futures and moral panic. Tim and I headed to the US earlier in the year for South by Southwest. We went there to hear industry leaders talk about what's happening in the web and some of the challenges that are coming up. As Tim mentioned, what happens in the consumer space makes its way into enterprise and government. South by Southwest is where these new things in the consumer space generally launch. By example, Twitter was actually launched at that conference. The strongest theme at South by was that the openness of the internet is under threat. This is under heightened concerns of privacy and trust. That directly extends into this future of connectedness and uploading even more information. We're going to explore these two likely scenarios as extensions of how we use the internet today. And we're going to use that as a way to frame some of the predictions in the field. How we're all going to be more connected and what kind of information we're going to be uploaded. It's a safe bet that over the next 10 years, the internet is going to continue to make us more connected. Most future scenarios expect that the internet will grow and reach billions more people. This is an obvious trend, but again, the impact is massive. When looking at predictions of the future internet, the general consensus is that countries already with open access will benefit from the strengthening of global connectedness, increased innovation, development and education. Over the next 10 years, these benefits will be felt even more significantly by nations being connected for the first time. The most profound global impact will be the revolution of education, connecting the brightest minds and people of shared interests. This scenario, and many of the other scenarios I'm talking about today, were highlighted in a recent study of the future of the internet by Pew Research and Elon University. They canvassed 2,500 experts in the field, futurists, business leaders, academics and developers. The biggest impact on the world will be universal access to all human knowledge. Hal continues to say that the smartest person in the world could currently well be stuck behind a plough in India or China. Enabling that person, and the millions like him or her, will have a profound impact on the development of the human race. If you've seen the movie Good Will Hunting with the late Robin Williams, then you might remember a story told about a young mathematician from India. This is in fact a true story. Ramanujan, with almost no formal training, made extraordinary contributions to mathematical analysis and number theory. Ramanujan was born in India in 1887, with no access to the larger mathematical community. He was introduced to formal mathematics at age 10 and was given a book on advanced trigonometry, which he mastered by the time he was 12, even producing his own theorems. At 25, he attempted to contact English mathematicians, but his papers were returned without comment. He persisted and was eventually invited to Cambridge, where he spent another 5 years. Ramanujan contributed brilliant knowledge to the field of mathematics before his death at 32. He is highly regarded as a mathematical genius, and he achieved great things for mathematics that we're only able to fully understand more recently. However, he was mostly self-taught, and that meant that some of his theory was wrong. It was different to the accepted theory of the time. Imagine his legacy if he was able to connect with the theory of the time or people who were able to teach him, and what he would have been able to create then. Forget what you know about augmented reality and wearables. Imagine what we'll be able to create with more people like Ramanujan and millions more bright people connected, collaborating, and standing on the shoulders of giants. Hyperconnectivity isn't just about people. Experts predict that tens of billions of devices will be connected to the internet over the next decade. Depending on which analyst firm you talk to, it's anywhere between 25 and 70 billion devices connected in the next 5 years alone. And that's excluding tablets, PCs, and mobiles. Let's take a step back. Looking at the model that Tim has been discussing in terms of experience management, I want to take this idea of multiple front ends or multiple engagement points and extend it to the future where billions of more people and tens of billions more devices are connected. What happens when the web browser fades away? 10 years in the future, there will be even more new interfaces that people will use to access and upload information. These new devices are also going to need to get their data from somewhere. Thinking about content management for websites and mobile will be a thing of the past. Managing customer experiences across any interface will be the challenge of the future. 10 years ago, I had my trusty flip phone and my first PC. I actually didn't have a fully working PC till after I'd finished uni. Today, I've got my PC at work. It's a different PC, but I've got a laptop which doesn't work and a mobile and tablet which sort of fill in the gaps. Because of the cloud, I'm largely unshackled from my desk. I can send emails and make spreadsheets and whatever else I do from anywhere, anytime. Thanks to Moore's law, in the near future, we might see a convergence of these devices into a single smartphone and a growing popularity of dumb screens. Your phone will be the computing power to replace your laptop or PC, and instead your screens, your TV or any surface might become a display for your phone. The expectation loop that Tim was discussing earlier will come into play as our experiences with technology will continue to improve, and people are going to expect those same experiences from government. Maybe we want to interact with government through our internet fridge. We're realistic that the future isn't going to be this shining utopia with 7 billion people holding hands and wearing Google Glass. But we also believe that the future internet isn't going to end the world. Any advancement of technology can be used for positive and negative ways. As the world becomes more connected and people trade privacy for convenience or perceived gains, a small percentage of people will still continue to try and do harm. We like to focus on the good parts of human nature, as well as the internet ecosystem that helps amplify that potential. Fast forward 10 years from now, and Australia is part of this hyper-connected world. Let's assume that the thriving ecosystem continues, and we can all contribute information from our mobiles or whatever device. Let's build with that with the tens of billions of other things that will be connected to the internet. Some experts predict that the worldwide volume of data doubles every 2 years. Over the next 2 years alone, they expect we might move from creating 6 zettabytes of data every year to 13 zettabytes. And a zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes. This is a really nice idea, that information sharing will become effortless and invisible, just like electricity. Instead of being on the internet, you'll just be. We all know that this networked future will have an immense amount of information. And this is something the world doesn't yet know how to comprehend. As a consumer of information, it will become increasingly more challenging to find meaningful information, what we want, when we want it. One big concern in this age of information overload is that the influence of misinformation will be greater. This could very well be caused by people who don't have the skills to question or understand the motives of their sources. It could be just people seeking out information to confirm their own self-serving bias or views. And that might be erroneous or slanted or incomplete. And that may actually do more to polarise people than the help that it provides. Now, this is not a new problem. It just means that in this hyper-connected world, it's amplified, where everyone's voice can reach not tens, but tens of millions. A cool example we came across was Cyro had developed a social media monitoring tool called Visi. So the Department of Human Services rolled out Visi to prioritise their efforts and to try and prevent the spread of misinformation. Using public data and social media, Visi monitors a baseline conversation. It can then alert staff when conversations are deviating from that theme so that people can jump in and nip it in the bud. This is a fantastic way to monitor and prevent the spread of misinformation. In this vision of experience management, the idea is that these technologies could be neatly integrated into the engagement layer. Imagine using a technology like Visi to help promote or prioritise information in your multiple digital channels based on what the public is actually talking about or how they're talking about it. Over the next 10 years, there'll be even more amazing solutions and technologies that will help us find meaning in the age of information overload. It's not just about more computers being connected. In this vision of 2025, we're in a world where citizens are motivated. They're motivated for more digital engagement. Billions more people are connected, and they're already uploading troves of information. The opportunity is for us to tap into this environment of connected people, mobiles, and sensors, as well as their willingness to contribute and engage any hour of the day. Crowdsourcing is not a new concept, but it has never been easier to use your digital products for public engagement. You can use it to, obviously, Jan was talking about it, to solicit ideas, but you can also use it to even volunteer labour. In 2008, the National Library opened up a crowdsourcing tool as part of their newspaper digitisation project. The library aims to digitise every single newspaper in Australian history. The problem was that these pages were all on microfiche, and the text wasn't searchable. So they had these large images sent off offshore, and they had ran through a bunch of different processes for OCR, so for getting the text out of the image. The OCR translated text was relatively low quality. So they launched a website where people could get on there and correct individual lines of text. Now, this doesn't strike me as the kind of idea that I can imagine a lot of people getting into. They launched in 2008, and the person at the top of their leaderboard has corrected almost 3 million lines of text. The collective wisdom of the crowd could be the extra brainpower you need to help describe, organise, or translate your information, making it much easier for others in the future to find meaning. And the best part is, based on our experience, the capturing of structured data from the public is something that Drupal does really well. So, from the age of the consumer, we've taken the trend in experience management and extended it to a possible future in 2025. This is a likely scenario where people and things of the world are hyper-connected, and information publishing is accelerating at such a speed that we're going to have to find new ways to make sense of it all. I've hinted at how some emerging technologies and analytics, as well as old-school crowdsourcing, might be possible ways to find meaning in the age of information overload. Now it's back to Tim to talk more about Drupal in this context.
So Alexi fast-forwarded to show us a glimpse of the future. It's only a small slice, but you can see that we'll definitely be more connected. Even more connected than we are today. The internet will connect people and knowledge on a whole new scale, and our participation online will only increase as it becomes ubiquitous and beyond the browser. I spoke in the beginning that Drupal can form the centerpiece of your online engagement, but that the experience now trumps the content. Alexi mentioned that at least another 25 billion devices are going to be online in the next 5 years. And it's a fact that they each won't have their own version of Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. It's because they'll be running Internet Explorer. Just joking. However, as I mentioned earlier, and now with Alexi's input, the demand for exceptional experiences is only growing. This, in turn, demands more from us in every sector. Government is no exception, being asked to do more and rise to expectations set online by services that are pouring millions of dollars into this effort every day. The good news, though, is that there's some key parts of Drupal that are going to help you start down this path and do more with less. Let's look at those first and then touch on some examples. So no doubt today you've heard a bunch of talks. They've given you some things to think about, maybe some ideas to optimize your site, add new features, work better together. The force of the Drupal community is not something to be taken for granted. In our experience, not only is there lots of great knowledge to lean on, but often the piece of code that you're about to write has been started by someone else. Your job can then be using it, building on it, or improving it for everyone, rather than starting from scratch. This is a big part of being able to do more. It's worth mentioning that the government initiative that we've heard about today, which is GovCMS, to transform content-rich, template-based websites to a single Drupal platform. And this ties neatly into this concept. So one of the objectives from their documents is that GovCMS seeks to deliver cost savings to agencies through coordinating government activity and economies of scale. Also, GovCMS seeks to utilise open source to share artefacts between agencies and the community. This is for the purpose of saving costs on development and, of course, not reinventing the wheel. When talking about experience management, it's certainly not a software solution that you can just plug in, switch on, and you've got it sorted. There is no single piece of software because we're combining not only digital but the physical world now as well. That in turn requires the software we use to acknowledge this new ecosystem. This is very much in line with the trends we see today in apps, say, as discrete components, or cloud computing, which gives you the building blocks to create entirely new systems. As we've discussed, Drupal will become this conduit between devices, systems, and users. Dries, the founder of Drupal, has himself said that Drupal's biggest challenge going forward is to create a user experience that gets out of a user's way and lets them go about their business regardless of how simple or complex their task is. The next version of Drupal, which is Drupal 8, and there's been some talks on that today as well, contains a number of initiatives to help enable this. And there's a whole bunch, but the top ones that I've picked out are, first of all, mobile. This is with the main aim of getting this working out of the box, rather than something that you have to add on or an afterthought later. It's not only a front-end change, but also includes performance enhancements so that mobile devices can better perform and use less bandwidth. The second part that I see as key is the multilingual initiative. This one aims to make Drupal better handle internationalization, which is important in a world that is not limited by geography. And the third is web services. This is the way Drupal can communicate with other interfaces while sitting in the background. This represents most closely our description of Drupal as the conduit between different devices, systems, and users. This is utilising your insights and analytics from other systems in the way that you present info, but also collecting information from users and feeding it back into these other systems. These, and of course more, are all things that will make up the core of Drupal, meaning it's part of its core nature rather than being bolted on or a continual fight to undo something else that it wants to do. So let me share a couple of brief examples. We've been pretty keen on these concepts for quite a while and have battled it out using a whole bunch of different methods. An early example was in the lead up to the Canberra's 100th birthday, Canberra Centenary. We used Drupal to build a site that showed videos of people telling stories about Canberra. In this project, anyone could upload a video, but they could do it from their desktop using a webcam or via a mobile app. Drupal sat behind both and passed this data off to another system that recorded the incoming stream from their webcam and transcoded the file into a consistent format. It was moderated and approved, which is probably wise in this case, before it was displayed in a rich front end that visualised the videos floating in a 3D space. Separate cloud storage was used to host the videos, making them available and reduced our bandwidth costs. You see here how Drupal sat in between a number of systems, ensuring a consistent and engaging experience, while not having to be the front man. Another more recent example was for the National Museum, which we're in right now, and moving their collection online. Their data is stored across multiple systems and indexed by another separate system to Drupal. We don't need to reinvent those, rather we lean on them for advanced searching and querying, but we don't store any of it in Drupal. This all feeds into a rich front end which you can use without any of those old school page refreshes. The result is an experience that lets you discover information. Drupal will come into play again as the system expands in the future to accept user-contributed information and enrich data further, as well as, of course, mobile apps and other interfaces layered on top. In both these cases, we've changed the meaning of a content management system and been able to focus instead on creating great experiences. By using Drupal as the conduit between systems, we've been able to get up and running quickly and benefit from the existing knowledge and support. This allowed us to deliver more value for less effort.
We've talked about how content management is becoming experience management, driven by the age of the consumer, where we want more and we want to wait less. This idea has been extended forward to 2025 to a hyper-connected future, where people and things are uploading like crazy, adding to the age of information overload. We are the last generation that will remember life before the internet. Our experience gives us a fairly unique perspective on the changes we've seen over the last decade and the incredible upside. In this room, we're also a group of people who are privileged to be the creators of the digital world. I'm sure we all understand how great it is to be able to find an answer for almost anything online. And with the help of passionate global communities like the Drupal community, we can learn almost anything. This idea, the creative potential enabled by the internet, greatly accelerates the development and distribution of open source software like Drupal. There's never been a better time for learning and helping to contribute to the web. There are no insurmountable barriers to entry, and technological advances continue to make it easier and easier to be involved. On-demand cloud computing now means that billion-dollar companies can be created by a handful of engineers. As Tim discussed, it's also a great time to be a consumer of information and services. Competition and innovation are thriving. Today, we have a healthy ecosystem, and these benefits are all built on the best part of the web that we know today. I want to end on a quote from Robert Cannon, channeling Alan Kay. The good news is that the technology that promises to turn our world on its head is also the technology with which we will build our new world. It offers unbridled ability to collaborate, share, and interact. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. It is a very good time to start inventing the future. Thank you.